I'm the negative team. Great, then let's get started. While I was researching for debate, I found a quote from George Washington. It says, "Don't believe Abraham Lincoln anything he says about the internet." No, I'm just kidding. He didn't say that either. But let's take the meaning behind that seriously. Let's take a deeper look at the facts without judging a book by its cover. So in this speech, I'll be copying my partner and using the acronym FACT to outline my four main voting issues. F for faults in the government, A for American partnership, C for contrary motives, and T for taking control. So let's dive right in. So my first point is faults in the government. Faults in the government. Now, we as the affirmative team cannot deny the fact that Sudan does have human rights abuses, but it's with the hope that by passing this plan, we can improve human rights abuses that we are passing this plan. Unfortunately, the negative team has not necessarily conceded that human rights abuses aren't necessarily strategic interest. They're kind of saying human rights abuses, they're not in U.S. interest, and upholding them does not really matter to the U.S. right now. But if that's the case, why are we even fighting terrorism in the first place? The reason is to uphold human rights. See, upholding human rights actually is a strong U.S. interest in the region. We are trying to uphold human rights. In fact, by passing the affirmative team's plan, we're not going to be endorsing corruption like the negative team is saying. No, it's a plan into its time to fight corruption and to stop human rights abuses. And I'll be highlighting that in at the end of my speech. But for now, let's move to my next point about A for American partnership. A for American partnership. This wasn't touched on too much by the negative team after the rebuttals, but in this point, I'll be talking about how the U.S. has a strong partnership with Sudan in fighting terrorism. Remember back to the conscriptives, you can remember that we had a piece of evidence from the State Department that clearly stated that not only does Sudan not support terrorism, but it fights terrorism with the U.S. It is an active counterterrorism partner with the U.S., and that's just another reason of taking off the state-sponsored terrorism list, because they don't sponsor terrorism. In fact, they fight terrorism avidly, not only with a partnership with the U.S., but also with a partnership with Saudi Arabia, as we can see with the Houthi rebels. In addition to that, I have another point I would like to bring up, is that of C of contrary motives. C for contrary motives. Now, the negative team was kind of saying that we had circular reasoning, that Russia, us not wanting Russian influence is equal to U.S. interest, and then it goes in a circle like that. However, we actually it's not really quite like that. In fact, Russian influence by itself is detrimental to what the U.S. wants in the region. For instance, we have human rights abuses. It is clearly seen that the U.S. values human rights and is upholding it. That's why we're fighting terrorism. That's just one reason why the UN has worked so hard to make sure that there is peace in the region between Sudan and South Sudan. In addition to that, there is terrorism fighting. Now, the negative team said that Sudan is looking for Sudan's interests. Well, that's true, and that would be weird if Sudan was looking for U.S. interests. But because of that, what we need to do is align Sudan's interests with the U.S. interests. We can do that by passing the affirmative team's plan. By having enough leverage over Sudan, we can align its interests in benefiting itself and benefiting the U.S., so it's a mutually benefiting relationship. By having them access the IMF, we can improve their economy. But by having them improve their economy, we can have leverage over them and help them fix their human rights problems and help them be a better partner in countering terror. That takes me to my last point of T of taking control. T of taking control. The negative team was questioning, do we really have a guarantee that Russia will not have control after the affirmative team's plan is passed? I'd say definitely yes. Definitely yes. The reason for that is because of the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, not the Impossible Mission Force, but the International Monetary Fund. They have the mission out there to be able to give Sudan debt relief. By relieving them from the debt, which they desperately need, they have one of the poorest economies in the world, and they're desperately needing debt relief, which will be granted by the IMF if they're taken off the state-sponsored terrorism list. Then we will be able to have considerable leverage over what they're doing. The IMF allows the U.S. to have leverage over what Sudan is doing. In the current system, Sudan is turning away from U.S., saying Russia is a much more viable option. Russia is giving us what we want. Russia is helping us. But what we can see is from the U.S. is that they're teasing us. They're saying that we will give you a reward, we will take off this SST list, but they have not done so yet. So that's what Sudan is seeing from the U.S., and because of that, Sudan thinks that the U.S. is no longer a viable option for them. In addition, by passing the affirmative team's plan, we can have control over Sudan, by taking a look at the facts, you can see this is true. For all these reasons, I strongly urge you to vote for the affirmative and vote for the facts. Thank you.